Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Despite what shows up on your screen, my name is Laura Kaifas. Due to kind of how we log in, we're sharing logins. So anyway, I'm with the City of Tempe's Neighborhood Services Department, and I'll be helping out with hosting today's meeting. This live meeting is being recorded and will be available for playback within one business day. You can find that at www.tempe.gov/priestdrive, all spelled out one word. All attendees, you're currently muted and you won't be able to see who's on the call other than the panelists and the hosts. First up on our agenda is how we will participate, kind of the guidelines. On this webinar, there are two ways to ask a question. We'll open up the floor for Q&A afterwards. The first way to ask a question is to type your question in the chat box. We'll read it out loud at the end of the presentation. Please state your name when asking questions. The second way to participate is to hit the raise hand button, which lets us know that you would like to actually speak live. If you're on a desktop or a laptop, raise the hand button on the right side of your screen. If you're on a cell phone, please click the chat bubble. If there are many raised hands, we'll call on participants in the order received. It's important that you note that the comments from today's meeting will not be logged as official comments. To actually register your official comment, please go to the website, tempe.gov/priestdrive after our webinar, and click the link for the survey. If you dialed in, you'll only be able to listen. Please direct any questions to Chase. This information will be posted on the final slide with his email and his phone number. The comment period for this topic is open from today till July 29th. As in live public meetings, we ask that you state your name and stick to the questions related to today's topic. Please be respectful of the audience when asking questions. No profanity, no cursing. If you're having a tough time asking questions, we'll be happy to arrange for a personal call after this webinar. Just let us know. There'll be an opportunity to put in your name and contact number for us to get with you. Okay, so today's speakers are Chase Wellman from Tempe's Transportation Division and Anita Johari, our engineering consultant with Wood, Environment, and Infrastructure Solutions. Chase will present information on existing conditions, and Anita will be presenting on the alternatives being proposed. At the end of the presentation, we will open it up for questions. Just again, a reminder that comments will not be logged as official comments for the public information summary. Those need to be done on the website. Thank you again for attending, and I'd like to turn it over to our project manager, Chase.
Thanks, Laura, for the introduction. I'm Chase Wallman, Transportation Planner with the City of Tempe. And as Laura mentioned, we're also joined today by Anita Johari. She is with our design consultant for the project with Wood. And just wanted to thank everyone again for taking the time out of their day to view our virtual public meeting on the Priest Drive Bike and Pedestrian Improvement Project, as well as giving your feedback. So before I hand over the reins to Anita, to go over some of our proposed design alternatives, just wanted to give a brief background on this project and what we're hoping to accomplish. So this project was originally identified in Tempe's general plan and was recommended by the city's Transportation Commission to be put forward to compete for MAG, which is Maricopa Association of Governments, Design Assistance Grant funding. So that is a funding source where we're able to get design funding for the preliminary design phase of bicycle and pedestrian projects. So we compete with the region for that funding. So we were ultimately awarded just over $65,000 to do this preliminary design report and plan. So this is the framework. This design assistance program is the framework recently that we've been using on a lot of our bicycle and pedestrian projects as sort of the first phase in design to go ahead and get a really good vetted preliminary design and cost estimates. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish with this project. So This is, again, the first phase of the design process. So the ultimate goal is that we are going to vet out multiple alternatives. This is our opportunity. Way in the beginning, we want to engage the public to drive the design moving forward. So this is why we get this public outreach so early on in the preliminary design. So we'll be able to show these alternatives and then gather the public feedback from today and come back to you guys in the fall with refined alternatives. So our goal is to have multiple alternatives that have been refined and understand which alternatives are feasible and which alternatives are not feasible going forward. So this project specifically is pre-strived from Ray Road on the south. That's our border with the city of Chandler along Priest. And then continuing north to just north of Elliott at Grove Parkway at the location of our future roundabout on Grove Parkway. So looking at this location map, this is showing some of the surrounding bicycle and pedestrian connections along the corridor. So our ultimate goal with this project is to be able to address this gap here that you see in bicycle facilities along the project corridor, as well as some pedestrian facilities and street infrastructure that's missing along Priest Drive. Primarily that is south of Warner. The pink lines that you see here on this map to the right are going to be the multi-use paths in the area. The blue lines are the bicycle lanes in the area. So as you can see to the east, we have the Kyrene Canal multi-use path. This continues north and connects to our Western Canal multi-use path. This then continues west and will hit our Western Canal Extension project. This is a short project that will connect users from the Western Canal and continue west to our newly constructed Highline Canal project. So that's this pink line, the Highline Canal, that runs diagonally through the project corridor. And there's multiple entrances directly to this canal from the project corridor, including this connection here at Knox, which Anita will talk about more continuing on in this presentation. Just one thing to note, again, this is the first step in the design. So we're going to finish this project with the 15% preliminary design plans and report, where we'll have a cost estimate, understand the opportunities and constraints, like what utilities are there, what right-of-way is needed. And at this time, there is no construction funding or final design funding identified. So there is no timetable on the implementation of this project, but certainly an important first step and a way for us to get this public outreach way in the beginning to drive this design moving forward. So these next few slides are just showing typical conditions along the project corridor. So this is an example, this left photo here, of some of the street infrastructure and sidewalk deficiencies that we see. This is actually in an area of County Island that's along Priest Drive, south of Warner, near Caroline Lane. So as you can see from this photo, we're missing curb, sidewalk, a lot of the street infrastructure, including street lights along here. To this right, this is another typical condition that you see if bicyclists are riding along the project corridor. You'll see many of them riding on the sidewalk and potentially, like in this example, riding in a wrong way manner along the sidewalk. These two photos are looking at both our north terminus of the project as well as the southern terminus. So this left photo is the northern end of our project. This is showing the continuation of the buffered bike lanes north of Elliott on Grove Parkway and looking north towards the future roundabout location. This picture on the right is showing our southern limit of the project. This is that Ray Road, again looking northbound, but this is showing more of the character of the commercial and some of the destinations that can be accessed directly through along Priest Drive. Along the corridor, there's many different cross sections. This is available to view on our Priest Drive webpage that Laura mentioned before. All of these same materials will be available. So your public meeting presentation, as well as the actual boards in these cross sections, if you'd like to view it and zoom in closer to these. But I wanted to show this slide just to give everyone an idea of the typical lane configuration that we see along the corridor. So although the widths of the lanes vary along the corridor, we generally have these two type of conditions, and that's this first condition north of Warner, where generally we see 3 northbound travel lanes, 3 southbound travel lanes, and this two-way left turn lane or center turn lane throughout the corridor going north. South of Warner, we generally see this condition where we have 2 northbound travel lanes, 2 southbound travel lanes, and then again this continuous center turn lane moving south. And then obviously this is showing both cross sections and areas where we have sidewalks, but as I mentioned before, we do have some areas where we do not have that sidewalk, and we even have some areas that have a partial bike lane, for example, on this bottom section, which is just north of Caroline Lane. From here, I'm going to hand it over to Anita to go over some of the rest of our existing conditions, as well as go over some of these project flyovers. So this is going to be another slide, a video of kind of a flyover video going through the corridor, so to give you guys a little better picture instead of just the still images of what we're seeing out there. And I will note that this is from Google Earth, so the imagery does not reflect our recent improvements to Highline Canal. And with that, I'll hand it over to Anita Johari.
Thank you, Chase. Anita Johari, I'm the lead traffic engineer with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions, and I am the design consultant project manager. And Chase gave you a good feedback about the project. So we will have this video showing the existing conditions. We're starting our video from Ray Road and Priest Drive intersection. As Chase mentioned, yes, start the video, Chase. So as Chase mentioned, you will see in the video as well, the intersection of Ray Road and Priest Drive has commercial entities on all 4 corners of the intersection. But as we progress north, Priest Drive becomes more of a residential roadway, having houses and apartments on both sides of Priest Drive. Some of newly constructed apartment of the homes have also constructed a bike lane just adjacent to their property. On the east side, you see as we approach Caroline Drive, this is a gap in the sidewalk facility because that's part of the county island along this roadway. We are approaching Warner Road, and you can see Highline Canal. A new signal was added at Commerce Drive to help with the Highline Canal. And now the roadway has transitioned to the 6-lane section. The transition occurred right south of Ruby Drive, and this will continue to be a 6-lane section up to Elliott Drive. So this is where the Costco area is. Near Elliott Drive, the northbound rightmost lane has been converted to a bike ped and bus lane. And that feeds into the buffered bicycle lane near, which feeds into Grove Parkway. So that was also in the previous picture, you saw that. And the future roundabout, which Tempe is planning on, will be constructed at this intersection of Grove Parkway and Priest Drive. Next slide, please. So as we went through that video, a fly through on the video, all the areas that you see in pink are the commercial areas, and all that you see in blue are the residential areas. The ones in gray are the county islands. So that gives you a good picturization of what are the land uses adjacent to it. There are some gray parcels near Auto Drive, but that is also commercial area. Yeah, where the pointer is, that's all commercial area. Then, and again, as Chase mentioned, the Highline Canal connects this roadway diagonally. So the recent improvement to Highline Canal, an intersection was added, a signal was added at the intersection of Commerce Drive. And improvements were made on the west side of Priest Drive between Commerce and Drive and Warner Road to make the Highline Canal a continuous facility. And so when we did our cursory field review, the only gap in the pedestrian infrastructure or the sidewalk we saw was near the county island, but for the rest of the roadway there is sidewalk. And as part of this project, we will finish that closure of that gap as well. And so we started this project in late February, and the first thing we did was obtain traffic count. So the traffic counts that we got were pre-COVID. So we were just fortunate that way that it was pre-COVID, and the ADT that we observed on Priest Drive, where the maximum that we observed was about 28,800. So an average of 29,000 is what we have assumed for this project. And most of the counts were taken in late February and early March when all the schools were in session. And we also did speed studies at various locations along Priest Drive. And in addition, we did AM and PM turning movement counts at all these 8 study intersections. And in addition, for the intersection of Knox, as Chase mentioned, there is a potential for a connection of the trail system on the east and west side of Priest Drive. We obtained pedestrian counts, a 12-hour pedestrian count on a regular weekday, and a 12-hour pedestrian count on pedestrian bicycle count on a Saturday was obtained to understand the use of that of the trail. Next slide, please. In addition to the traffic counts and the intersection capacity analysis, we looked at the crash data, the past 5-year crash data from 2013 to 2018. And most of the crashes that we observed were near the intersections and were the typical intersection type of crashes of rear end and left turn, side swipe, angle. A total of 5 bicycle pedestrian related crashes was observed along the study corridor. Next slide, please. So now we go into our proposed alternatives. And next slide. We are going to be presenting four alternatives, with alternative 1, which includes keeping the existing infrastructure, roadway infrastructure as is, but widening the roadway to accommodate the bike lane. The second one is adding the bike lane adjacent to the sidewalk, so the bike lane is off street. And the third one is looking at an option to reduce the number of travel lanes for the southbound movement from Elliott to Warner Drive, and using that extra infrastructure to accommodate the bike lane. And the fourth alternative is our no-build alternative. We use the FHWA and the NACTO guidelines to develop these alternatives. The FHWA, which is the Federal Highway Association, gives us a good guidelines on what should be considered when looking at a bike lane facility. So so bike volumes, connectivity, and access to destination points, and also potential conflicts if we add the bike lane should be looked into it, and we have looked into all those aspects. Then the recommendation would be to have a physical separation between the different modes of transportation, and a 2-foot buffer also acts as a separation between the vehicle and a bicycle lane. So all our alternatives, if they are on street, they do include a 2 feet buffer space between the travel lane and the bicycle lane. And NACTO recommends the use of green thermal green thermal paint on for identification of bicycle lane with their bicycle symbol. So again, all our alternatives include the bicycle lane and bicycle lane symbol and the green thermal. Next slide, please. This first alternative where we are keeping the existing roadway geometry as is, but widening the roadway to the outside so we to accommodate the bicycle lane on both sides of the roadway. And we are again going to go through a video. This will scroll from the intersection of Priest and Ray Road and up to the end of the project. So start the video.
Yes, and I will mention for everyone that we are oriented north to the right.
So the red lines that you see there is our right-of-way line, and you can clearly identify the bike lane, which is on street, and our sidewalk is identified in gray, which is off street, or it's also identified with the green line in this case, which is off street. And as we go close to Knox, you see that the right-of-way has become smaller. That is the county island area where we will need additional right-of-way to accomplish any of these recommendations. We are approaching Warner Road, so the bike lane transitions to adjacent to the travel lane to accommodate the right turn lane. And here is where it transitions to the 3 northbound and 3 southbound lanes, which is the existing condition. We are close to the commercial area of the roadway, and you see that so you see that the bike lane has been always identified with a green pavement marking. And at Elliott Road, the bike lane, closer to Elliott Road, where the bike lane and bus lane are the same, we will keep that configuration as is and end into the roundabout design. Next slide. So this you look of how the cross section will look. So the buffered bike lane on the outside, and you have this. This is near Ruby Drive, which is the commercial part of Priest Drive, where it has a 6-lane with a center turn lane. However, to accommodate and reduce our right-of-way purchase, we have reduced the lane widths for to make it consistently 11-foot wide drive lane and 10 feet wide center turn lane, or the 2-way left turn lane. And we've also push the street lights to the outside of the sidewalk so we can illuminate the sidewalk and the bicycle lane adequately. Next slide, please. So in this alternative, we have actually added the bike lane adjacent to the sidewalk. So the bike lane is off the street and adjacent to the sidewalk. Start the video. And again, we are going north. North is to the right, starting from Ray and Priest Drive. So the bike lane adjacent to the sidewalk, it has its own designated location on the sidewalk, and this. So there will be an 8-foot sidewalk, a small 1-foot gap, and then a 5-foot bike lane on each side of the roadway. This is again near the Green Tree, Caroline Drive. We will finish the sidewalk and the bike lane, so the gap on an infrastructure gap is resolved. So we are getting closer to Elliott Drive, and this configuration will continue past Elliott Drive and up to the location where it can safely meet with the buffered bicycle lane near Grove Parkway. So as you see in this option, we may require some additional right of way to accommodate this this multi-use path near Elliott Drive and Grove Parkway, between Elliott Drive and Grove Parkway. Next slide, please. So this is the cross section of the roadway. So we have our vehicles are on the road, and we have separated every mode of transportation. Each mode has its own space, and the bicycles and sidewalk, the bicycle lane and the sidewalk lane are on the same grade and and off the street. Next slide. So in this option, while you will not see much change between Ray and Warner Road, we have reduced the number of travel lanes between Elliott and Warner Road for the southbound travel only. So as we saw in the previous existing condition, we have 3 through lanes for southbound and 3 through lanes for northbound. Based on the capacity and traffic analysis, we were able to develop this option to reduce the southbound to two through lanes and use that additional space to accommodate the bike lane. This also reduced our construction and right-of-way acquisition. Start the video on this one. So you will not see major changes between Ray and Warner roads. They are very similar to how you saw it in the previous 2 alternatives, where you had the bike lane on the roadway, but it was a buffered bike lane. So the other advantage of that is south of Commerce Drive, Warner Road is a 2-lane section. So the transition from the 3-lane to 2-lane in this is not a very difficult adjustment for the traveling public as well. So as you see, the southbound has 2 lanes while the northbound has 3 lanes. We are still keeping the center turn lane as is throughout this corridor. This gave us the advantage to it reduced our right-of-way acquisition and our construction opportunity as well. In addition to this, we are also looking at, to make this a comfortable transition, the bike lane will just merge into the roundabout, the future roundabout at Grove Parkway. Next slide. So this is the revised cross section between Elliott and Warner Road, where the southbound you have two 11-foot lanes, and the northbound has 3 11-foot through lanes. The center is reduced to 10 feet wide, and the buffered bicycle lanes are on either side of the roadway, and keeping the 8-foot wide sidewalk. So all these options, next slide, please. But in all these options, we have maintained a 6.5 feet buffered sidewalk in each for each direction of travel, and an 8-foot wide pedestrian sidewalk on each side of the roadway. So while we were looking at different opportunities along this roadway, Priest Drive between Warner and Ray Road has a dense residential population, and also looking at the speeds, and we looked at the opportunity to convert the center turn lane to a raised median. Start the video on this. So this option could be implemented in any of the 3 previously mentioned alternatives. So that's why we didn't combine it with them. So in this, you see that the raised median has been added in place of the center turn lane, and a pedestrian crosswalk with the median refuge island has been added at Knox Road, which connects the communities to the east of Priest Drive to the to Highline Canal using the existing trail in that area. And the other advantage of this median is also speed control, where the center turn lane would not act as a passing lane, but rather but because of the raised median, that opportunity of it operating as a speed lane is reduced. Next slide, please. This will be the configuration of Priest Drive between Warner and Ray Road with a center median. We have again reduced our drive lane to 11 feet wide, and bicycle lanes on either side of the roadway with a 2 feet buffer and a 10-foot wide raised median. Next slide. So at Knox Road, while we saw it with the median option, we looked at several other options, including a traffic signal for accommodating the pedestrian crossing, but the pedestrian volume and the bicycle volume is very low to warrant a signal. In addition, Lisa Drive, which is just south of Knox Road, it's about 250 feet, has a signal. So, and it is within the recommendations of or guidelines that if there is a signalized crosswalk, then within 250 feet, then another signal may not be needed. So we looked at the cross again. We looked at a pedestrian signal option, but the volumes don't meet the warrant. However, for people who do feel comfortable at a signal, it's just 250 feet south of this location. So so one of the possible recommendation is to create a median refuge island at that location. So a 2-stage crossing can be completed there. Next slide. So this is the next 2 slides. You will see a comparison of the alternatives, where we looked at features like safety, pedestrian operation, bicycle operation, transit, impacts to transit, traffic operations. Safety, we are now, and we are comparing between alternate 1, which is the widening of the existing roadway, the second alternative where we have a multi-use path on both sides of the roadway. Then the third one, we have reduced the travel lane. And the fourth one is our no build condition. In all the 3 alternatives that we have proposing over here is better than the no build condition with respect to the safety. That is because we are creating a unique space for each mode of transportation: bicycles, vehicle, and pedestrians. So the problem with our alternative 2, which is the multi-use path, for bicycles, the sight triangle at driveways is reduced. So that is one aspect that we have to consider when we make this recommendation. Then pedestrian operation, we are providing continuous sidewalk throughout the corridor. So the gaps in the existing condition are going to be filled in. So all these options give us that benefit. The downside of the pedestrians for pedestrian operations is if somebody feels uncomfortable riding the bike lane which is provided on the roadway, and use a sidewalk. But that could happen at any location, but that would be the only downside, and that will be with alternate 1 and 3. Then bicycle operation, as I said, we have a unique bicycle space on the roadway, designated bicycle space on the roadway. So it's an improvement from the existing and no build condition. However, in alternate 2, we may encounter some sight distance and sight visibility issues at a bicycle and driveway intersection. Next slide. Then connectivity, definitely with the improvement plan, we are connecting all the commercial and residential areas to residential areas. We're also connecting it to the existing trails in the area. So all 3 alternatives are going to improve the connectivity in the area. Transit operation, there's no adverse impact to the transit operation. It's at the transit bus stops where if we have the bicycle lanes in alternate 2, the bicycles and the bicycles and the pedestrians have their own designated spaces to maneuver near the transit bus stop. So that's an advantage with alternate 2. Traffic operations, we are not changing much of the vehicular travel patterns or travel or lane configuration that much. We are reducing the lane width to 11 feet, but 11 feet is within the acceptable normal range for roadway widths. So the traffic operations is not adversely impacted in alternate 1 or alternate 2. In alternate 3, we are reducing the southbound lanes from 3-lane to 2-lane configuration for a short distance between Elliott Drive and Warner Road. But south of Warner Road, it's been a 2-lane roadway, and so the traffic impacts and capacity impacts because of this lane reduction is very minimum at these intersections. So again, we are comfortable with that alternative as well. Maintenance, the green thermoplastic pavement marking is a maintenance issue, and it has to be maintained in all the 3 alternatives. In the alternative 2, we have additional sweeping space on the sidewalk, so added it as a negative for maintenance. Then construction cost. A lot more right-of-way is needed if we keep the existing configuration as is, and just widen the roadway. And in all 3 alternatives, you will see that there will be some impacts during construction. The amount of right-of-way needed in alternative 1 was higher than the amount of right-of-way needed in alternative 2 and 3. Next slide. Chase, do you want to take over the next steps?
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Anita. So for our next steps for the project, we are obviously in our first public meeting for this project. So like I said previously, we'll be coming back for a second round. And in that meeting, what we're going to come away with from today, after we presented this alternative, we have a 2-week comment period. So we'll be gathering not only our comments that we've received to date so far from our various city commissions, as well as other resident feedback through emails or phone calls that we received to date, but also from the survey, which is available online. So please take that survey at tempe.gov/priestdrive so we can include it in the official record as well as the public input summary. But those comments will inform us moving forward when we come back in the fall. And in the fall, we'll be presenting refined alternatives. So we may remove an alternative, we may combine alternatives, but we're not going to select a preferred alternative at this time. That's going to be for the later stage of design during our final design phase. So again, the end product of this project is to vet out any feasible alternative with that and further refine it from the public feedback that we receive. So we'll be going again to the fall to present those refined alternatives to the public, as well as present this again to our Transportation Commission. And then ultimately that will culminate in getting our finalized 15% plans for those refined alternatives, as well as the report. And again, that report kind of shows us all of our data collection, our initial environmental investigation, and probably more importantly, it will show what the projected costs are so that we as staff could start looking at how this project gets funded, if we can pursue federal funding, or how else it gets programmed in there. So as the last bullet indicates, if we were to get the construction funding, we'll of course come back out to the public and do the additional public outreach, as well as it necessitates another design phase, the final design phase, before we would implement any of these alternatives or select a preferred alternative for the project. And again, all these same materials, so you'll be able to zoom in to all of our plan views as well as the cross sections. They're all available on tempe.gov/pre-strive, as well as a link to that survey. And I would recommend just for everyone to use Google Chrome, because it seems to have formatted our survey better than any of our other Internet Explorer or other browsers that we have. So with that, here is my contact info. If there were any additional questions beyond what we're able to cover here in this Q&A session that we're going to start off right now, if there is any additional questions or you want to talk more about the project, this is my contact information, so feel free to give me a call or email additionally. And I think with that, I pass it back to Laura for our Q&A.
Okay, thank you. Our first person with the question was David Rice. He's called in, and we'll see if he can actually ask it live. If not, I will read them. David, I've unmuted you. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, for the multi-use path option, when the person's crossing each, say, side street crosswalk, are they required to yield? They wouldn't be if they were in the street buffered bike lane, but I think in our city code, wouldn't the multi-use path be treated differently?
I don't know.
Pardon?
Sorry, I think I heard, Robert, were you speaking to that question?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
Chase, you want to answer it?
Yeah, so if I heard the question correctly, you're talking about for the multi-use path option and yielding to the driveway, is that correct?
Yeah, the driveway or the side street. In that if you were on the street in the buffer bike lane, you wouldn't have to worry about that in terms of you would have right of way, right? Whereas I think the multi-use path, your right of way is different at certainly side streets, right?
Yeah, so I would feel comfortable with our traffic engineer answering that question. I believe in that case you would be yielding to the driveway user, depending on how it was signed. But I'll have to follow up with you on that, unless Anita, you have any other insight. But I could follow up with you, David, on how it pertains to our city code.
Okay, thank you.
David, did you want me to read your other questions here, or did you want to ask those live?
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of questions, but I didn't want to like hog this.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious about in the buffered bike lane portion, in the buffer, will we consider putting up like there's like a terrace wave delineator that looks kind of cool, nicer than like a candlestick, or putting in like precast concrete, like maybe 1 foot wide islands or a series of islands that separate the bike lane more robustly from the roadway?
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for that question about the physical separation. We still need to vet this through the other internal city departments, so like our maintenance and streets. But we're still exploring what the physical separation would look like. We wouldn't select a certain product at this time. We're really focusing on the roadway geometry and as far as maintenance, what that impact might be if there was a physical separation. So we'll likely come back in the next round with more information on physical separation. We just didn't have it well vetted internally or research as far as the precedent in the valley of what people are using. So we didn't recommend a physical separation at this time, but we'll come back with more information in our second round regarding physical separation. But we won't identify a specific product as far as what that physical separation is. That would come at a later time during the final design phase.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have another question from Joe Strutman. Joe, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I got the question I wrote there. I also had some comments to make. Is it appropriate I make a couple minutes worth of comments now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let me read this off. So yeah, my name is Joe Strutman, and I lead the Pickless Action Group, which is a group dedicated to accelerating cyclist safety and mobility. I live at Priest and Ray, and I ride Priest all the time. And we support options alternatives 1 and 3, which have the bike lanes on the roadway. I'm really surprised that you got option 2 on there, which is the sidewalk option. I mean, one of the most regarded documents for bicycle facility sign is the AASHTO Guide for Development of Bicycle Facilities. I mean, ADOT follows this document among other agencies. And alternative 2 is considered a side path and is not recommended in an urban environment. Some of the reasons you mentioned and others are too many side streets, entrances, and conflict points, poor sight lines, cyclists not in the normal scanning area of the motorist, cyclists riding on a sidewalk at unexpected speeds much faster than a pedestrian, motorists blocking the path, cyclists forced to do pedestrian-style left turns, cyclists that choose to ride in the road for safety are harassed by motorists, and it is well documented that there are over 4 times more bicycle crashes on sidewalks than on the road, and most crashes occur at intersections. Those conflicts will be greater for a side path. And furthermore, the Federal Highway Administration clearly states in their safety section, and I'm quoting here, quote, bicyclists are safer when they are allowed to function as roadway vehicle operators rather than as pedestrians, unquote. So one reason is that bicyclists operate much more like a vehicle than a pedestrian. Therefore, they need to be treated more like a vehicle than a pedestrian. If you have any doubts about these safety standards and guidelines, please check out Hardy Drive between 13th Street. Alternative 2 is basically the same sidewalk side path design as used there, except worse due to the higher speeds. And I've seen almost everything on Hardy, from wrong-way riding and walking to cyclists in the pedestrian path, pedestrians in the cyclist path, regardless of the green paint or attempts to separate them. Cyclists constantly dodging cars, pulling in front of them at entrances, bus stop chaos, harassment by motorists, inability to commute at a reasonable speed. And what I didn't see was my friend Greg, who was taken out by a motorist at one of these intersections, a hit and run. So I challenge everyone to go to Hardy Drive and participate and observe for yourself. And I think you would drop this design. We want safety, not a false perception of safety. Just the perception of safety can actually increase danger. Just ask Greg. And South Tempe is low density, and we need to lie long distances to get around. We need fast and safe bike lanes, similar to what you have on McClintock or rural. So I ask you to please follow AASHTO and safe practices. If some users are not comfortable with the bike lanes, you have, are better off with a slower journey. You have the alternatives, which is the Highline Canal. So therefore, I request that you remove alternative 2 from consideration. It's not safe or practical. And if I got a minute, I just want to add one more clarification. I seen as I wrote on the thing, the bike lane width you're showing there is either 6 or 6.5 foot. That's including the gutter pan, and the gutter pan is not included in the riding area for any kind of common standard that everybody follows. And your gutter pans in Tempe are 1.5 to 2 feet wide. So that would place the bike lanes at somewhere between 4 and 5 foot wide, depending on or 5.5. So I think that should be clarified, so it's not misleading. But anyway, thanks for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to put the comments out there.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for your comments.
We have another question from Kristen. The question is there any plan to incorporate bike lanes into the roundabout in either alternative 1 or 3?
So this project specifically will terminate just south of that roundabout as far as the design.
Oh, Chase, we're losing you.
I got hung up there. I didn't see bike lanes being indicated in our plan views for the roundabout, so I think it's not included. But I can follow up if you would put your email there in the chat, and I'll check with the project manager for the roundabout to clarify that question if they are included.
Okay, we have another question from Kevin. Forgive me, it's a little hard to read this. I am a competitive road cyclist that rides on the roads of Phoenix between 4 and 7 days a week. I basically live at Warner and Priest. Sorry, it keeps cutting off here. Oh, it would be nice to have a bike lane on the road, especially during afternoon and early evenings. I've recently started riding Green Tree Drive, Ranch Party. We have some, to get to Ahwatukee. Because there are bike lanes on the main roads, I never ride north on Priest from Ray to Elliott because of the lack of cuts out. Sorry. I don't know if would you like to state your question live? It's pretty hard to read it all. It's kind of long.
I think he was stating a preference, it looks like, for alternative 1 and 3. And I didn't see a question in there. I think it was more of a comment.
Gotcha.
But yeah, if he's on here still, he'd like to clarify in there. I'm looking at the Q&A as well, and it looks like there was a question regarding our border with the city of Chandler.
Yes, I'll read that.
Yeah. Do you want to read that one?
Yeah, I got it. I extended the chat box a little. How will the city of Tempe extend bike lanes along Priest between Knox and Ray? That is city of Chandler.
So that portion along Priest is actually the city of Tempe. So that's why we are designing. So if I could move back here. It is Knox Road as far as the Highline Canal. This probably gives a good view of that delineation. But Priest Drive actually going south is where we're identifying improvements all the way to Ray Road.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions?
And I should say, Laura, sorry to interrupt. The city of Chandler is also one of our stakeholders, so we are going to be reviewing the design with the city of Chandler as well as the county as far as getting their comments and making sure that everything ties in with their infrastructure, especially tying into Ray Road there.
Okay, and we also have a comment from Tammy. She had to drop off, but she said she's overall excited for the improvements as a 20-year resident of Sierra Tempe and a very frequent pedestrian along Priest Drive. I look forward to the improvements. Anybody else?
I see another question about use path. I can't read the whole thing, but the last one is, can a hawk be considered on Knox and Priest? We are looking at all the options. We haven't ruled them out at this time, but as I said, pedestrian signal warrants don't meet, the current volumes do not meet the warrants, but no option is ruled out at this time.
All right, Laura, do you see any other questions or comments?
So let me check the chat here earlier on.
And while she's checking, I just encourage everyone again to visit our website at tempe.gov/priestdrive in order to access that survey. And if you wanted to comment further on any alternative, or if there's any additional elements you'd like to like to see as part of this project. We have a write-in portion to the survey, so please go ahead and include that in there.
Okay, I'm looking, David.
And
We have
and
a
the
question from Greg Larson. Hang on here. Let's let Greg ask his. Okay, Greg, you are unmuted.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
We can, thank
All
you.
right, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for hearing me. And let me start out by saying I am excited about the prospect of improvement of this section of roadway because it needs it. I live in Sierra Tempe, and I've lived in Sierra Tempe for several years. I am a cyclist. I'm also a lawyer. I ride. Part of my law practice is personal injury. So the way that I'm viewing these alternatives include a component of what is safe. And I ride on Priest Road regularly. I ride my road bike about 3 or 4 days per week. I also ride my mountain bike several days a week, and I frequent Priest Road. So I'm encouraged that the Transportation Commission is taking steps to improve this stretch of Priest Drive because it really needs some help. Let me express my strong discouragement for alternative number 2. It reminds me most of the Hardy Road improvement between Broadway and University. And that design is remarkably dangerous for a variety of reasons. One of them is the placement of cyclists in relation to the motoring traffic. The cyclists are placed on the outside of right turn lanes, and they're placed on the outside of where motorists tend to stop when they're entering the roadway. My concern about the placement of cyclists on the right turn lanes is that sight distance and the reduced sight distance and visibility. And it's the same concern with the proposed alternative 2 bike paths as it crosses side streets and driveways. My experience on Hardy Road is that almost every cyclist I know either avoids that section of road altogether because it is remarkably dangerous. They will not ride on that raised path because it's like an obstacle course. There's bus stops, vegetation, not to mention the vehicles. The law about whether you have to yield or not yield is very confusing. The motorist cyclist interface is not intuitive. I was riding southbound at Hardy, and I was hit by a vehicle driving northbound on Hardy, and that vehicle was navigating a left turn and did not yield to me. And after the collision, the vehicle drove away. I was remarkably uninjured and suffered no property damage. However, the city of Tempe the Tempe Police Department, in its course of investigating the collision, issued me a citation for failing to yield to a vehicle turning left in front of me as I'm traveling straight. It's nonsensical. That circumstance adds to the danger of the alternative 2 design. I could go on and on about why the alternative 2 design is not appropriate, not safe, and I would. Let me conclude, however, by saying I very, very strongly support and encourage both options 1 and 3, and as strongly as I possibly can, I discourage alternative 2, and please remove that alternative from the options for this improvement. It is not safe. Let me add one more comment regarding bike lanes in the roundabout at Grove Parkway. That would be fantastic. The route for cyclists heading northbound and southbound at that location of the proposed roundabout many times includes a left turn. If you're heading northbound, my map turned off, so I don't have it right in front of me. I apologize for that. If you're heading northbound at the roundabout, a frequent route would be a left turn. Heading south, a frequent route would be a right turn. So let me say I would strongly support a bike lane in the roundabout. I, again, thank you for hearing me. Thank you for listening. I'm encouraged, and I'm excited at the prospect of improvements on Priest Drive.
Thank you for your comments, Greg.
Yes, thank you. And I did see in the chat this webinar, this presentation is being recorded and will be posted as well on our website on that same www.tempe.gov/priestdrive. I'm not sure how long. I think it's usually a day before it becomes available. Laura,
It takes a little bit. Yeah, about a day. We had a hand up with Joel, but I think he's left the meeting. Kristen, if you're still with us, did you want to speak? Okay. Looks like Joe Strutman, do you have another question? You're unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I just had a couple more comments. Yeah, there was good. Greg brought up excellent points as far as the legalities there, and so did David. So I think, yeah, I would encourage you guys to really look into those, because Tempe does have unusual laws regarding that compared to some municipalities. Another comment I wanted to make, and you guys will find this out, I'm sure. Bike lanes are not recommended in roundabouts, and I won't get all the details and everything, but yeah, it's not a good practice. And then one last comment. I know there was a bunch of other people that had contacted me, said they were going to call in and make comments here, but they probably had I know some of them had other commitments and had to hang up earlier, but hopefully I will get them to write something in. But just to let you know, yeah, there's more people concerned with the alternative too. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and listening.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, we have another question from Kristen. Kristen, Christian, I'm sorry. You're unmuted.
Thank you. Yeah, so I did want to express the fact that I'm actually very happy with how these plans are built out. 1 and 2 are both excellent plans. My personal preference is for 3 with the medians in it. In that one section where raised medians were being proposed. I also do like the idea of having a hawk signal there, even if present volume doesn't fully justify it. I feel like that would be a good piece of infrastructure improvement that would allow for future growth that we should expect from improving bicycle facilities along Priest Drive. I also, as the other presenters have noted, I'm also very much not in favor of alternative number 2. More or less for all the reasons that they've noted. I currently deal with Priest Drive on a regular basis, and as a result, you know, I deal with the current existing setup like that on Hardy on a regular basis, and it is very problematic to say the least. But yeah, so, and the reason why I bring up bike lanes in the roundabout is because with the new roundabout that was installed on, I believe it's First Street in Rio Salado, it can be a little bit hairy navigating that as a cyclist when you're coming from First Street or coming from Rio Salado, just because you're suddenly thrown in with the rest of the traffic, and it's a bit of a mess. So at least having some way for cyclists to bypass on the northbound section would be very advantageous. But I recognize that's not in the scope of this plan. I just wanted to put that out there. And yeah, that more or less concludes my comments. Thank you again for all of this, and I really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thanks for your comments. Greg, is your hand still up from before, or do you have a further question? I guess that answers that. David, did you have a further question?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're in.
I've got a question on at the very southern end of this project, the southbound right turn lane at Ray. It seems like the run up to that right turn lane is quite long. Because the right turn kind of cut out to go into the Lowe's driveway runs right into the right turn cutout for the right turn onto Ray Road itself. Is there some standard as to how long those are? I ask because a few weeks ago in crossing the street, my daughter was almost hit on that northbound sidewalk by a southbound driver kind of making a rolling right turn on red. And I don't know if there's sort of standards for how long those right turn cutouts are, or if that would be in the scope of this design.
Anita, do you want to talk to that? I know it deals with the queue. I think he's talking more the queue length of those right turn lanes.
So based on, I have to go back and look at the queue length, so I'll provide the answer for it. So the way we calculate that turn lane requirement is based on the queuing at that right turn approach, and so we have a significant demand for that southbound right turn lane, and that's why it's that long over there. So maybe your question is, it looks like a right turn lane to the Lowe's driveway, and then it is a right turn lane into, and then that feeds into the right turn lane here as well. There will be, as we are refining the alternative, we will be looking at how the bike lane fits into these, with the existing turn lanes, and there will be improvement with that on how that lanes get aligned. So what you have right now is a very wide through lane, which just feeds into that right turn lane, and that could be the reason why some conflicts can occur.
Yeah, I guess my concern is just the safety of the crosswalk there, not necessarily bike lane related. It's more crossing the street. So
yeah. When we go ahead and make that refine our alternative, you will see that we will have to address the pavement markings over there, so that might get addressed. We won't change existing queue length requirement or the turn bay requirement, because that is what is needed for that area based on the volume demand. The markings can be well defined over there.
Yeah, thanks.
Is there anybody else that has a question? Either in the chat or raise your hand. Give it another minute. I'll just remind you that we need your official comments to be entered onto the actual survey that's online. That can be found at one of two places. I guess the most direct way would be tempe.gov/forum, FORUM, or all the information is available at tempe.gov/Priest Drive, spelled out. You can comment in either place. It goes all into one place. Questions, anybody? Well, with that, if we have no further questions, thanks everybody for attending. And all this will be placed on the website, including the recording of this meeting. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.